Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsey, a psychologist in Silicon Valley and the host of Super Psyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. Super Psyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't.
One of the most common topics discussed in my office is social anxiety. Really great people who suffer from it say there's nothing more painful than going to a party where they know few people, or worse still, no one. How about giving a toast at a wedding? Or trying to engage in small talk that might lead to bigger talk? Or how to handle awkward social interactions? If there's one person on the planet who knows how to handle all of these, it would have to be my new friend, the mingling maven, Susan RoAne. Susan is the author of the now classic book, How to Work a Room, the ultimate guide to making lasting connections in person and online. I loved this book, as have major thought leaders like Dan Pink and many others. Indeed, Susan is a mingling maven, and she knows how to teach others how to be one as well. So, as it says on Susan's website, if you have ever walked into a room full of strangers and felt uncomfortable, listen in. Susan is here to help. Susan RoAne, a hearty welcome to Super Psyched.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
It is so much fun to know you. I actually met you thanks to someone across the pond. And I met you partially because you and I have a similar skill. We have no compunctions about meeting people, talking to people, and asking people. And your book is so important. How to Work a Room is not just highly informative. It's not just a page turner in that it's accessible and delightful, but on every page, there are multiple nuggets that people can walk away and be richer for them. I'm going to start with just kind of a general sense of the fact that you and I must be related and we have no compunctions about talking to whomever, whenever, about whatever. And you and I both take, I'm guessing, almost like an Indiana Jones pursuit, delight in the pursuit of finding out what treasures lie beneath. When you just talk, just for no other reason, just for the joy of it. Sometimes it's extrinsic. Sometimes they lead to something more, but generally it's just fun to talk to people. And I wanted you to just weigh in on this idea of just the joy of talking to people.
Well, first of all, what I have said to people is, because I teach people how to work a room, etc., is the number one skill, the number one trait is you have to like people. Now, some people listening may say, well, that's easy. I go, no, I know a few people who have actually said to me, I don't like people. And my answer, which I never say out loud, but I say to myself is, really? I couldn't tell? Of course I could. And for people that would like to be able to be comfortable in any setting, in any room, I just want to reinforce, it's not that you have to be like I am, but you just have to like people. Think they're interesting. Think they're nice. And here's what I'll tell you. When you like people and you think they're interesting and you are interested, people open up.
Yep. I know so many people who have a hunger to connect, and yet they are lacking that one thing that you just mentioned. They love being interesting, but they lack being interested. And that is problematic because that unidirectional energy will be very limited and may actually be imposing. How can a person cultivate interest if they don't kind of have it organically?
Okay. I hate to be the one to say fake it till you make it.
Mm-hmm.
But I had I guess he was an associate superintendent, kind of a mentor when I was a teacher. And he did something that was so crushing. And I remember saying, how could he do that? I would never do that to him. And I was reminded, Susan, you can't use how you would treat people as the basis for how they would treat you, because you are having the presupposition that other people matter to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so, here's what you do. If you could add these 4 words into your vocabulary. What about you? What about you? That's 3 words. And the other one is tell me more. That adds up to 6 words. What about you? Tell me more. Also, another way to say it is, well, what do you think? How do you perceive this? It's the invitation for someone to share. But you know what, Adam? I have seen people take the list of questions in their head, and someone reminded me, a client who hired me to speak reminded me this of Larry King. He asked 1,000,000 questions. And I actually talk against that, asking 1,000,000 questions. I'll never forget, she was the vice president of marketing of this accounting firm. She said, and I'm actually waiting for him to listen to an answer. So the idea that, oh, yay, I ask a lot of questions. No, sometimes you have to listen because people tell you what they want to talk about. But that's what I wrote. What do I say next? If you in your brain are thinking, oh my God, what do I say next while someone's talking, you're going to miss the subject that they're telling you they're interested in talking about because you're so busy thinking of what question you should ask from your agenda.
That is a really hard thing to silence. This anxiety to sound intelligent or to prepare a thing. It's something I learned how to rid myself of in the context of improv classes. I did 2 years with Sue Walden over.
Oh, I did.
You know her, huh?
Patricia and I took one of her classes.
She's fun, right? She described her process as being the most fun you could have with your clothes on. And I thought that was really great. But it taught me because you can't prepare an improv. You just have to go with what's in front of you. How can people get a planectomy so that they stop planning what they're trying to contribute to sound perhaps intriguing, intelligent, or whatever they might feel the need to do, and be able to just be with what's coming through the pipeline?
What you're talking about is the ability to have impromptu, off-the-cuff conversation. And I have a feeling that has to be your mindset. So one of the things I would say is practice. Talk to people. Nowadays, we don't have to go to the grocery store and we don't have to go to the bank and we don't have to. But you know what? When you're in a situation where there are people around you, look around, smile, and say something off the cuff. So here's my favorite elevator story. I'm in New York speaking, and I just met with my agent, and I get into the elevator of my hotel, and it's a tiny elevator. It's one of those minimalist hotels. And I look and I get in, and there are 3 people already there. It's so tiny, we're literally on top of each other. I walk in, and it was on 55th or 8th or something. And I said to them, oh, are we all getting ready to go to the Carnegie Deli for corned beef? Now, that wouldn't work, believe me, anywhere in the Bay Area. But what it did is it made them smile.
Right.
And let me tell you what the upshot was. I chatted with them. They chatted back. They were here for a meeting. And the gentleman in the elevator was executive or whatever with Comedy Central.
Oh, come on. That's right.
And this was a number of years ago. And I said to him, oh my gosh, I'm a fan. South Park, Jon Stewart. He ended up getting me on my next trip VIP tickets to The Daily Show.
God.
You never know. And not just say you walk into an elevator and there isn't someone from Comedy Central. But what nice and generous, friendly thing to do is to have a smile and make a comment. I've sometimes been dressed in an elevator very casually, and people will be going to a wedding in the same hotel. They'll walk in, they're in gowns and tuxedos, and I'll just look at them and say, I think I'm underdressed for the occasion. Have fun with it. I know this is so hard for people who think of themselves as shy or an introvert, but it's like playing tennis. Practice, practice, practice.
I'm blown away by that Comedy Central thing. I love the whole Carnegie Deli. May its memory be for a blessing. I think it's now gone, but what a great place it was. Oh my gosh. And the Jackie Mason jokes about they used to be so much bigger. They used to pile it on. Anyway, I love that place. And I love the idea of you just being able to engage and just basically send out a ping. Sometimes it's not received, but it's like playing ping pong. Hey, I'm serving a ball. I'm mentioning how I'm underdressed, or I'm just talking to somebody. And next thing you know, worst case scenario, nothing. a good case scenario, a nice connection and just kind of a human interaction.
I want to just do this for
Yeah.
the audience. Two words Adam just said, human interaction. Why that's so important. Even if you never see this person any
That's right.
time in your life, every bit of research that they have about staying healthy and having your brain stick or whatever is about human interaction. In fact, the most recent research, they interviewed someone about how to keep your brain functioning, and everybody's doing crossword puzzles, and I could do the New York Times and ink. And here's what the researcher said. No, keep on doing it. You'll get good at puzzles. Is it going to keep your brain fit? Probably not. What does work is the idea these people are playing mahjong and canasta and bridge. Bridge isn't because it's full of wonderful strategy. Bridge is because you got three other people at the table and you're talking to them. Human interactions. And I talk about the things that stop us from doing it, the roadblocks. Be the person who initiates. And this is where Sir Richard Branson quoted me. And he liked this. He did a list of 10 things to do when. And part of my quote was, good things don't come to those who wait. This is what he quoted. Good things come to those who initiate. So be that person. Say the first word. Do the smile. And by the way, if you want people to know that you are approachable, make sure your face has a smile on it. Very few people walk anywhere and see a person scowling and think, oh, look, a scowling person I want to meet. No. So if we make it easy for people to come over to us, that's actually a gift we give them and give ourselves, because then they start a conversation with us and you're off and running.
You know, as you're talking about human interaction in this way, I'm thinking about a concept that also comes from improv, and that is acting as if. And when you are engaging someone on the elevator and saying, I underdressed for the occasion, you're acting as if there's already a connection. And they may take it, they may not. But I love the acting as if. And the person who I learned that from in life was my grandpa, Ben. He was a clothes salesman, women's clothes, on Austin Street in Queens. And he had no compunctions about talking to anybody. When he retired in Florida, as one does, he would walk around his community talking to everybody about anything, buying Entenmann's cake and delivering them to people's doors and laughing and just basically flirting with the blue-haired women in the Publix grocery store and making their days. I love the acting as if component as I listen to you weigh in on human interaction and faking it till you make it. I'm wondering what you think about the acting as if component.
Yes, and I am going to do an add-on because one of the roadblocks is, I'm going to be Scarlett O'Hara and wait to be introduced. But Dr. Adele Sheely, who founded the first career center and was one of the first career columnists, she did at Northridge, famous for its really big earthquake. Dr. Adele Sheely wrote a book that was classic, Skills for Success. And in 1980, she wrote for the then original Success magazine an article about some of this socializing. And she wrote something that I have quoted her. That was 1980 that I read it. It's in all my books and in every talk I do and now in any podcast I give. And I still quote her because I didn't make it up. So Dr. Adele Sheely wrote, and this was for the business community, instead of acting like a guest at events, and I do my little extra feed me, bring me a drink, amuse me. What you do is you act like a host. You act like the host. And what I'll do in my keynotes and seminars, okay, you all know a good host. Write their name down. Tell me what the good hosts in your life do. Of course, there's always one person that will say they have a large liquor cabinet fully, but I go, well, that's kind of not what I meant. No. What do hosts do? And what we'll come down to is they welcome people, they introduce them people, they make people feel comfortable. You can do that in any room, whether you are the official host or not. Go over and talk to people, introduce them to other people, make them feel welcome, have a kind word. And so, yes, act as if you are the host. Now, the side part of that is, since How to Work a Room came out, I'm going to call them the imitators. have lifted that quote, but they never quoted Dr. Adele Shealy. They make it like it's their own. So this goes back to another point, and this is not just on how to work room, it's how to be a savvy networker. And that is always, always, always attribute, always acknowledge, and always say the name of the person who created the concept that you're talking about.
Amen.
And you'll never have an attorney, my attorney, getting in touch with you.
Well, I love that point that you made in the book about citing the source. It's so crucial. I remember giving somebody an idea, a concept, a thought experiment, and that same woman got up and presented, and she simply said, and the idea occurred to me to do this. I was sitting in the audience kind of crumpling. And I was crumpling because it was a great idea, but she didn't mention me. And I felt so kind of cheated. But I'm thinking about your friend, Dr. Adele. Just terrible that she's not being cited. And I love also, just on another note, the idea of when you're a guest, be a host. And it goes right back to what Richard Branson quoted you for saying. When you're host, you're still initiating. You're not just saying, take care of me. You're saying, I will contribute to the music in this room by bringing good energy and bringing up the vibe. And I'm guessing that any ecosystem that you step into benefits from it. You even told me a couple of weeks ago, I hope I'm getting this story right, that you could be parachuted to a wedding in Greece and immediately walk in knowing pretty much nobody, and you've got friends.
Well, first of all, I pretend I was in Zorbard the Greek and I'd start dancing with them. And I have been places, and this is what I want to say to your audience. I wrote How to Work Room, and there are times I walk in and I'm like, oh my God, I know no one. So lest you think that some of us never have a problem, we all have problems sometimes, and the pandemic has exacerbated it because we didn't have social. So we sometimes have to relearn. If you go everywhere with this, the idea that I'm going to act like the host, and here's what people who are self-conscious think of as how they're going to make themselves comfortable. And I had someone in a program I did in Hawaii say to me, you know, Susan, I think you need to tell your audiences that they need to change that focus 180 degrees. Go everywhere thinking, what can I do to make other people comfortable with me? And when that happens, people sense that. They're a little more open. You're a little more open. Then you're having a conversation. And it goes back to what you said. Adam, everybody's talking about, well, I'm a relationship guru. If you're not talking to people, you're not in a relationship. And I've had a couple people say, well, I was talking to so-and-so. And I go, really? When did you? Oh, no, I meant I was texting. Oh, texting is texting. Talking is talking. Texting is asynchronistic. You do it, then they do it from different places. Talking, you're seeing people's faces. You're watching their eyes. You're seeing their gestures. You're watching their body language. You can hear their tone.
It creeped me out when text therapy started becoming a thing. And I thought to myself, what is lost when we text? So much of communication. And to your point, the idea of the relationship guru who doesn't engage people. And of all the words you've dropped so far, the word initiate, I see why Richard Branson got so excited about it. That is a really, really important thing to be able to do, especially if you're a so-called relationship guru. You better be keeping your chops. And one of the ways you do it is by kibitzing with the people in line when you're checking out of Whole Foods or Trader Joe's. By the way, one of the tips I use, and I'm wondering if you think of this, I work with some people who are exceedingly brilliant and socially anxious. And one of the big tips I give them is just start where you're going to be safe. When you're in the checkout line, for example, at Trader Joe's, ask the cashier what product they love that you might not have known about. The checkout person will talk to you all day about these great products. A, you'll develop a new relationship. And every time you go in, it's like, oh, there's that person who turned me on to that idea and product. And B, you're going to learn about a great product that you didn't know about. It's a win-win. What are some of your tips that you give people who might be on the socially anxious side?
It's so funny. As you were saying this, one of the people at Trader Joe's recommended lemon curd, the British whatever. And I went and bought a jar and I'm going, don't ask people who are going to put calories on your thighs. I think you go with what's safe and who's safe. And I think when we're in a grocery store, first of all, I'm not very good at picking out the right vegetables and stuff. So I will always say to the person next to me, does this look like this is ripe enough? Ask people for advice. Also, back in the days before I had stark white hair, I loved white hair. And if I saw someone with white hair, I would always say, I just need to tell you, I think your hair is beautiful. People who maybe were older, maybe not a lot of people talked to them that day, not only would they say thank you, they would tell me, oh, this happened overnight when I was 22, blah, blah, blah. And I'd get the whole story. Now, there's always the exception. So one day I'm in my bank and this woman had beautiful white hair. For those of you that can't see, it's what I have now. It's called my Corona coiffure. And I said to this woman, your hair is absolutely beautiful. And she said, it's a wig. Okay, what do I say after that one? I didn't know what to say. I said, well, you picked a good one. I think we need to practice talking to each other. There are people, and we all know stories of this. They don't talk to the barista. They don't talk to the checkout person. I go to a place called Molly Stone's, and we had a checker who looked like Matt Damon. I loved being in his line. And finally, I said to him one day, does everyone tell you you look like Matt Damon? And he looked at me like I was strange, which could be true, but I didn't think at the time. And he said, you know, most of the customers don't even look at me when I'm checking them out. It was heartbreaking. He was so flabbergasted that I would say something nice because people don't acknowledge. Fast forward, I was working on my last book, and two of my checkers that I hung out with and I liked were at the same restaurant I was, and we were talking, and they were saying that it used to be that people just didn't look at them, but now they're checking out, and this is how rude we are. We are looking at our phones. Really? This person could be overcharging you. Why are you not paying attention? And she said, it has gotten worse and ruder, so that anyone that has, this is an old expression, two nice words to say to the barista, the cleaner, it's that people will remember you and they will welcome you. And every interaction you have there will be a better interaction for you because you've been, and I know this is going to sound so Pollyannish, because you've been nice to them.
You know, the other night I was calling Chewy to order some products for my dog. And this is not me virtue signaling, but this is me trying to share with you a corroborating story. And the woman at the end of the call said, you're my last call of the night. The guy who spoke to me before me was mean. And I'm so glad that you cleansed the plate so that I can go home and feel better as I go home. And I was so moved to hear her say that. She was lovely. And I just think about these folks who are on the other end of the line, invisible to the other people because you can't see them, but they're people and they're working and they have bills to pay and life anxieties just like anyone else. Going the extra mile with them doesn't cost anything. And furthermore, every time we do this, we get better at it. So why not? There are too many reasons we need to do what you're endorsing.
I will tell you this. How to Work Room was my first book. And then, of course, I wrote Secrets of Savvy Networking. And then what do I say next? But here's the sum total of everything. One of the fellows I went to University of Illinois with, a Chicago guy, so I'm kind of sound like he sounded. When he read How to Work a Room, he said to me, Susan, you gave the book the wrong title. Oh my gosh, what should I have called it? And he just smiled at me and he said, it should have been called How to Make Nice in a Room.
Oh.
And that's the essence. Now, I know that a lot of our listeners will say, yeah, but this person has a really big position and how do I go over and talk to the person that's the celebrity in the field, whatever. You assume that they may be a snob and that they're too important to talk to you. I'm going to ask you to never assume that. I'm going to have you assume that everyone in that room has a moment or 10 of feeling shy and uncomfortable.
So good.
And another tip is when you walk into a party, a meeting, a convention, a fundraiser, and you don't know what to do, first of all, take a very deep breath, scan the room, see where people are. I don't go to the bar, but see where the food stations are if it's a reception. And here's the best Susan RoAne hint. Start with the dessert table. And I will tell you why. When you walk over to the dessert table and there are chocolate chip cookies, little flowers, chocolate dripping bundt cakes, mini cannoli, the people eating those things are having fun. I know you tell this to people, and vegetarians, please don't kill me. I never met anyone looking like they were having a great time at the cut-up vegetable table. And I'm sure there are people that do. I'm not one of them. But you go over to that dessert table, and you can start that impromptu conversation. Oh, that looks delicious. Is it as good as it looks? Oh, I wonder how many calories that might have. People, when they're eating, are approachable. And here's the other thing. Food is a conversation piece. That is why people bring donuts to a meeting. Oh, I want the one with the sprinkles. No, I want the glazed one. Anywhere you go that you are in charge of throwing a meeting, I know you don't want people to stick around, but if you will have a little, what we call nosh, something that people can look at and talk about food, you will be giving them a topic to start the conversation that is neutral.
This is so good. This is such a powerful tip. And I'm thinking about both science and literature as you're speaking. I'll go with the science first. Dr. Rachel Herz, who's the world's leading olfaction expert, she teaches at Brown Medical School, and she wrote Why We Eat What We Eat, and That's Disgusting, and various other books. She was talking about why you eat what you eat. I apologize, Rachel, as I try to say the title of your book, but Herz is her last name. She's fabulous. And she said that when we're eating sweets, we are actually in a sweeter mood. And then I'm thinking about the idea of the nosh that you were suggesting. Yeah, pretty good. The nosh. What did William Shakespeare say? He who dines with me is my brother, or breaks bread with me is my brother. And the word companion comes from the etymological roots of come, together, pon, bread. So it's those who with whom we break bread are our companions. So you basically are suggesting, hey, you want to connect with people, do it the way the cave people did, the way our brains are oriented. Bring in some food straight from a fresh hunt, except they're donuts. And that's such a great tip.
By the way, I give the best tour of San Francisco. Everyone who knows me knows. And I have recently added into the friends and family tour. I said, oh, you can go to the wine country on your own and take that. I give the donut tasting tour. There are a couple of places that I took one of my nephews, and we were in Japantown and we got mochi donuts. And I said, I know you're tired. I said, do you think you have enough energy that if I drive over to Polk Street, we could go to Famous Bob's Donuts and we can do a comparison taste? Guess what? That kid had energy immediately. You just don't know. And I know there are probably people saying, oh, they're so terrible for you. Really? I don't think so. Find something else that you like. Last night, I did something I was really happy about. I had a friend who had passed on, and she had her own cadre of women. This one, they played mahjong. This one, they were in the sorority. This one, they went to Chinese school together, etc. And we were all on a thread when she was ill. And somehow we were back in the thread, and I wrote, gee, it's been a year and 2 months. It would be wonderful to see you all and have a tribute to Amy's memory. And last night, we had 9 of us at Dragon Bow Restaurant and Gary, because that was one of her favorites. I thought it should be there. And it was amazing because what we did is not all order our little picky foods. We went with the recommended 9-course meal. But every course gave us something to talk about. We all had stories to tell. I think that was one of my finest moments, is putting that together first of all, for those of you who don't know me, the fact that I could put it together and not have to cook for anything was a miracle. But if there are people you want to see and you haven't seen in 4 years, don't wait for an invitation. Invite 4 people and say to them, why don't you bring someone you'd like to bring? And pick a place and have people RSVP, and you be the person that starts the ball rolling. I started a network group in San Francisco years ago. I noticed that all my networks were like the Bay Area Women's Council and Entrepreneurial Women, blah, blah, blah. And what I did is I got a hold of 5 people that I knew and said, oh, wouldn't it be great if we had a group? We called it the No Name Networkers. We couldn't figure out a name. And I thought, well, that's alliterative. And it was male and female. Once a month, we met for just a couple of years, and people brought people. And what it was interesting is that the way women interact and men interact were different, and we blended. And men were saying, gee, they noticed that the women, and this is not a Sheryl Sandberg title, the women leaned into conversations. Well, now that we're all older, we have to lean in because we can't hear because of ambient noise. If you want to see people, invite them. Invite 2. Our friend, Dory Clark, has a wonderful technique. And I met Dory before she was an author 11 years ago because she wrote a tweet that was retweeted by Daniel Pink, who I know. So I retweeted it and she got to me on Twitter. We only tweeted back and forth to each other for 5 months before we even went to email. So Dory does this. She always does this in New York. She puts together groups of people she knows in an area. And she was in Napa and she was coming down here to have dinner with her pal, John Corcoran. And she invited me to come along. Well, then John and I were friends and we're friends with Dory. It's be a matchmaker. I know now that everyone goes, well, I'm a connector. Well, I'm from the old school. I'm a matchmaker. I put people together, but Dory is excellent at doing it. Now, for those of you that don't like this, I'll say it another way. She invites, she includes, she expands people's circle, and we can all do that for each other.
I'm loving taking this in. Dory is one of my favorite people. Her interview was easily one of the most hailed as exceedingly useful. And you met her before she was an international sensation, known as one of the top business thinkers in the country. She's just incredible. And I'm going back to the food, the 9-course meal, you don't have to cook, but there's so much more to it. You're engaging in novelty, and humans need novel experiences. And sharing a novel experience increases the intimacy already. You go on a roller coaster, the person behind you who you've never seen before, you look at them afterwards, there's a connection. It could be awe, it could be fear, it could be all of the above, but there is a connection, and people tend to look even more attractive after something is novel or slightly scary. There's a whole bridge experiment that was done where a woman interviewed people and she was rated on her looks afterwards on the swinging bridge versus on solid ground on the college campus. And invariably, the ratings were higher on the bridge. We do better when we're doing something kind of like, can you believe what's going to come next? We just had our 3rd course. What's the 4th going to be? And I can't wait to have a food tour with you. But one of my top tips for parents who have difficulty connecting with their kids is to create a rubric around a particular food. Oftentimes it's a hamburger. To go to 6 different places over the next 6 weeks with your child, coming up with a rubric to define the best hamburger, including the ambience of the restaurant. Sometimes zero ambience can be better than lots of ambience because sometimes it's more fun to eat in a really rustic place. I remember going to Barney Greengrass in New York and I was told, this place is so great because the ambiance is fantastic because there is no ambiance. And just a total, New York experience. And lo and behold, Barney Greengrass is amazing, very expensive and delicious and no ambiance. But when parents and children go out on a quest for a food, I mean, already they're bonded because it's a food, but they're doing a project, a quest. It's a great thing. Building things together can also be, from where I sit, a conversation starter because you don't necessarily have to look at each other, which can be intimidating. Your idea about the sweets table, though, is one of the best I've ever heard. And I want to go back to the room where you know no one. It's not like you're 6'4" and with a booming masculine voice and can walk into a room. You walk in with a smaller frame and you're female. And in theory, statistically, that doesn't bode well. There are some things against you, but you walk in to a room knowing nobody and have a better chance. And I want to see what you can pass on to the listener in that terrifying thought experiment. Because if you can do it, and boy, are you good. You had me in seconds. The few seconds after talking to you, I was just like, oh gosh, I love this person. If you were to break it down for basic human skills, what can a person do to face that extremely fearful thing of going to a room where you don't know anybody? You already threw us a couple ideas. They may be shy, go to the sweets table. What else can be done when you're seeming to get nothing?
Okay, now we're going to go into didactic Susan RoAne.
Yes.
Okay, most of the times you go in, and while we would love someone to introduce us, as Adam introduced me, most of the time we're on our own. So here's what you do before you go anywhere. You've got to do the prep. Period. End of story. The prep is think about how you're going to introduce yourself, what you're going to say. And I know there are a lot of people that say, well, have a 30-second elevator pitch. Oh, please don't even do that in an elevator. They'll pitch you to the floor below. What you do is you have a 7 to 9 second. That's the first trait. It's 7 to 9 second. It's a greeting. It is not a biography, an autobiography. It's 7 to 9 seconds. Your self-introduction should be linked to the event you are. When I introduce myself at an event with speakers, it's one thing. When I introduce myself, I'm going to my cousin's wedding. It's going to be a different because they don't care what I wrote. They just want to know, how are you here? Are you on the bride's side, the groom's side, etc.? So link yourself. And why you do that is so you give other people context for why you're there. So that helps them make conversation with you. And the third trait of a self-introduction comes from my friend, Patricia Fripp, who was the first woman president of the National Speakers Association, an executive speech coach, who said to me one day, she calls me by my last name, oh, RoAne, please tell people don't introduce yourself by your business title. She said, A, they vary from company to company, and B, you'd be better off giving people the benefit of what you do in a business setting. So you give them something that they could ask a question or make a comment, and then you're in a conversation. For instance, Susan RoAne, what do? I turn people into mingling mavens. All right. Nobody knew what that was until Malcolm Gladwell wrote Tipping Point and defined a maven. But you turn people into mingling mavens. And as I see the quandary on their face, I go, oh, well, yes, I wrote the book, How to Work a Room in Secrets of Savvy Networking. So I help people be able to socialize at business events. And then I stop. I don't go on for 30 seconds. And these are the words that I said earlier. And what about you? And then you're inviting them to tell what they've done. And then you're in a conversation. So prepare, have that self-introduction, be willing to shut up about yourself and say, and what about you? Another thing, for any event, go over to people standing alone. They did not dress up, commute, find parking, look for parking to go into a room to stand alone. And I did this, it was last month, and I am embarrassed to say, granddaughter's at Stanford getting a PhD in mechanical engineering, which is why she could make me earrings. It was the Viennese ball, and I went, and she was one of the dancers. So all these kids that wear T-shirts and sweatshirts on campus are in suits and gowns, and it was like being in Vienna. But I saw a young man in one of the rooms. He was sitting by himself, all dressed up, and I noticed him. I was with her and her other grandmother, whatever. I was with my group. And I said nothing. And then we went to another room where they were doing what I call the jitterbug, but they have another name for it. And there again, I saw him sitting alone. And in order to sit, because when you have white hair, everyone thinks you want to sit down. But I sat literally a seat away from him. And I noticed him. He talked to no one. No one acknowledged him. And I said nothing. Adam, I felt horrible for 2 days. And even when I think of it, I failed Susan RoAne 101. I saw this young man. What would have taken for me to turn to him and say, oh, I saw you in the other room. Are you a fan of swing dancing? This was not going to require a degree from Stanford to figure out how to say this to him. I said nothing, and nobody ever talked to him, and he talked to nobody. And it actually hurt my heart. And I was disappointed in myself. So I learned a lesson. I'm never doing that again. I'm never going to notice someone and then be too busy to say a kind word, especially someone no one is talking to. So here's me saying, when you see someone standing alone, they're standing alone or they're sitting alone because they're not that comfortable. I know people in business say, well, oh, that's a great strategy. It's not a strategy. It's kind. It's kind to notice someone. You want people to remember you kindly? Be kind. How hard is that to remember?
Maya Angelou said something that corroborates that so beautifully, and I'm sure you know it, but it's people will forget what you said or did, but they'll remember how they felt when they were with you. And if you're kind, boy, what a nice thing to put in their limbic system. We're getting to the end of our time. I just want to throw out a few things that people will find if they read your book. We've talked a little bit about the networking do's and don'ts, more explanation on guest versus host behavior. Talking about the benefits of what you do continues to show up in the book. You talk about the benefits of just talking to your barber, and lo and behold, you'll have a better movie. I'll leave it as that because you'll have to read it to find out. Manners and etiquette 101 and why it still matters. The handwritten thank you note versus email 5-photo rule. The 5-photo rule is hilarious. That is unbelievably funny. And how we need to lose my bad from the vernacular. So there's so many things a person can get from reading How to Work a Room. I haven't yet read your other books, but I can't wait because I know I'll love them. Susan, before I go, is there anything I should have asked but haven't yet asked?
Yes. Everyone wants to know this. People say to me, I know how to shake hands and say, hello, how are you? How do I get out of a conversation? So I am going to give you the Susan RoAne way is must exit graciously. So here's what you do. When you're talking to someone and you know it's time to move on, you could tell when they're ready to move on. Of course, the fact that they're put on the running shoes would be one hint. But here's what you do. You interrupt yourself and say, oh, it was great talking to you about deep dish pizza in Chicago. I just made that up, but I'm from Chicago, so that's what we talk about. What you do is you summarize in a phrase what you talked about so they know you were listening. I know a lot of people don't give out cards anymore. Have a card on you. You never know who wants a card for a good reason. You can make them off the internet. Oh, I don't use cards. I use LinkedIn. Don't give people homework. Have 5 cards on you because you're there to market to people the way they want to be communicated with. But then what you do is you walk a quarter of the room away from the person. You never say, hey, it was great talking to you, and then turn your back. Because then you will have, oh, I know what, turned your back. Walk a quarter of the room, go a quarter of the room away to the bar, the food, to another group. And that way you are not insulting people. If you didn't enjoy talking to the person, don't say, I had a great time talking to you, because they know you're a liar. What you do is, this is my favorite. You put out your hand, if you still are shaking hands, and say, hey, but with a big smile, I hope you enjoy the rest of the meeting, the party, the wedding, the conference.
So good.
That person may have had some bad news, and it may have nothing to do with you. The next time you see them, as long as you've been thoughtful, then there's still a relationship that can happen. And then you still walk a quarter of the room away. But the third thing, and I will close with this, instead of walking away from people, do what I learned from Dr. Irving Siegel, a founder of the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology. He called it the bring along. Oh, Dr. Jones, have you met Dr. Harris? I understand he was one of the researchers at the medical school you went to. You take the person with you over someone they haven't met, and you be the introducer. You be the great host. And I hope that that's a tip that you all will enjoy using. Thank you.
One of the reasons I love that idea is because it is authentic. You're not saying anything inauthentic, and you're giving them dignity, and it opens the opportunity for a second at bat somewhere in the future where there might be a greater connection, because perhaps, who knows? Yeah, to your point, we don't know when we're talking to somebody if they just got some bad medical news or something happened in their family. We don't know anything. So it might be the second round is phenomenal. And they come back and they say, yeah, I'd like to continue that conversation. And lo and behold, the second round is amazing. So I'm going to ask you my final question. And it's the one I ask nearly all of my guests. Susan RoAne, if you had the magical powers to confer upon all humanity one insight or skill that would dramatically improve the lives of that individual and perhaps even society at large by extension, since we are all connected, what would that skill or insight be? And how do you imagine it would impact the individual as well as perhaps society at large?
It's a question that I've answered because I have said many times, if I had a magic wand and I could wave it over humanity, and this also helped me define, before we even talked about our why, we called it life purpose, is I would want everyone to have the confidence and to have the comfortability to walk into any room in any part of their life. Because if you have that and you're comfortable in your own skin, you are taking charge, you're opening your own doors, and you're opening doors for others.
Gorgeous. I think, as sacrilegious as it is to say this, Babs got it wrong. People who need people are the luckiest people in the world. We all need people. So let's use that luck to its greater good and follow what you have to say. So many of our mental health issues, anxiety, depression, and others are byproducts of disconnections of various forms. You are finding ways for us to connect. And that is a massive, massive gift. I can't wait to have Chinese food and donuts with you. And so if you say the word and it's on, I will meet you in San Francisco. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with my listeners, Susan.
Well, thank you. And may you all go out and mingle.
This is Dr. Adam Dorsey thanking you for listening to Super Psyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe.